Once again, it's Sunday. God gets to shine on this beautiful day. In case y'all didn't hear Sister Deborah, Astros won. I don't know if you're Phillies fans. I didn't think Sister Deborah was an Astros fan, but apparently she is. So therefore, she has a special place in my heart today. I try to get my sister to come aboard, but she's just not interested in sports, and I don't know where she got that lack of interest from, but she did, so therefore we all have to deal with it. You know, we talk about this church being a judgment-free zone, and I think we pretty much have covered that so many times. So I want to put a little spin on it that maybe sometimes we haven't really given it any thought, okay? But first of all, I have to say, Sister Deborah, I am amazed how God is working with you in your ministry. I see a boldness every time she starts praying that is a confidence that you only get when you're that close to God. And it's showing. It's showing. I don't know if you realize this, but there's a lot of prayer that comes from Sister Deborah. There's a lot of prayer in this church that needs to be spoken. So there's a heavy burden on her and her family. So I'm just going to ask you once again, I've asked this before, but continue to keep that ministry in your prayers. Because that's what it is. It's a ministry. And it's a ministry that helps us in so many ways. So the title of my message today is Knowing Yourself with God. You must first love yourself before you can love your neighbor. We're going to read and start out in Mark, the 12th chapter. We're just going to read two little verses here, and then we're going to go on. But it's going to be Mark, 12th chapter, verse 30 and 31. We're going to be reading out of the NIV version, and it reads as such. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. Now this is the part that I need you to focus on, because it's all familiar, and we take it one way, but today we're going to turn it around and go a different direction. It says the second of this is love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than this. Love your neighbor as yourself. I think this church has done a wonderful job of when people come in having a judgment-free church. But today, I want to turn it around and say, hey, you know what? We've got it under control. We're not judging anyone. But what about ourselves? Sometimes we are our hardest critic here. Sometimes we are so hard on ourselves that it puts a burden between us and God. And today we've got to quit it. We've got to move on. We've got to quit judging ourselves. We've got to quit tearing ourselves down. Sure, we make mistakes. But you know what? God has got that covered. You know what? Yes, I still sin. Yes, I still make mistakes. Yes, I still get angry. And it hits me hard, especially at night whenever I'm laying back and I'm reflecting on my day or how I handled a certain situation. But let me tell you, God says, love your neighbor as yourself. Now, if we're so free and so easily being able to forgive others, then it's time for us to forgive ourselves. Because like I said in my opening statement, you must first love yourself before you can love your neighbor. So is this church really prospering when we're saying that this is a judge-free zone and we're not judging anyone and we're forgiving everybody that walks through the door and we're not holding anything against? When in reality what we're doing is we're holding ourselves. So if this church is going to prosper, we have first got to be able to love ourselves. Quit judging ourselves. Now that doesn't mean that we can't hold ourselves accountable and we need to watch what we're doing. But what I'm saying, if it gets to the point where it becomes a hindrance in your life and in your ministry, then we have a problem. I know there's many times where, as a praise team, and I want to say this, okay? I want a new, it's just like this community. We are no longer going to be called the praise team, all right? I've decided not to do that. I've decided that y'all will be the praise team. So when I come up here, I'm going to say, welcome praise team. Because ultimately, we set the stage, but you have to praise Him. You have to worship Him. So now, you got a vested interest in what we do up here because now you're considered the praise team. I just wanted to say that. I don't know why. All right? Maybe because today Sis was struggling with her voice. And I look out and I saw people lifting her up, filling in that gap and everything. And I appreciate that. Okay, so let's move on. So we know that in order for us to prosper, we're going to, first of all, love our neighbors. Okay? But we're also going to love ourselves. Now, we don't have to be arrogant in this. Okay? We can be very humble. All right? But you've got to learn to love yourself. Love the way you look. I know, women and men alike, we have a hard time. But you know what? When you make fun of yourself or when you judge yourself, what you're doing is you're judging God because God created you. Okay, when you look at everything in your life, God has done a wonderful job at designing you. You got beautiful hair, beautiful eyes, beautiful teeth. You're just the right amount of weight, no matter what that is. Your personality, or their lack of, God created you. So if you're down on yourself, and you judge yourself, and you condemn yourself, what you're doing is condemning God. And we all know better than to do that. Okay? There's always going to be something in your life that needs improvement. This is just one reason why we will always need God. Because as much as we can stand up here and say, you know what, I'm not going to judge myself anymore, there's going to come a time where you're going to do that. And then God's going to be right there for you, saying, hey, you know what? I'm not judging you. Why are you judging yourself? I am here to support you, to lift you up. But God is there for everything. You know, it will be a complete slap in the face if I stood up here and said that God doesn't want to change you. It's true. God has designed you just the way you are. All right? But we all know that there's things in our life that can be better. And that only comes through a relationship with God. So what God does is He changes us little by little. You may not even notice it. It may be a year from now. It may be 10 years from now. But you're going to look back and you're going to realize, you know what? God has changed me little by little by little. I used to not have the patience that I have now. Now I have it. I used to not be able to talk to strangers, but now I can come up to a stranger and start a conversation. I used to not be able to do this. I used to not be able to do that. But as I look back, God has brought me slowly, little by little, to where I'm at today. So many times we're looking at the road ahead of us. But sometimes it's just great to reflect on the road that's behind us, just to realize just how far God has brought us. And then we're always looking to how much further is God going to take us. Learn to enjoy the glory that you're in right now. As I got ready to start the season of refereeing, I have 2 pairs of pants and 2 pairs of shirts. One for the beginning of the season and one for the latter part. And I say that because whenever I was younger, summertime was so much easier. I would eat and have a good time. All right? And then when I went to go put on my referee pants and outfit, a little tighter. So I decided, I'm going to have 2 pairs of pants. Once for the beginning, whenever I'm trying to lose weight, all right, and then once at the end, when they're not falling down to my knees. So I got a loose fit and I got a tight fit. Right now I'm on my loose fit. All right? But this is how you need to prepare your life. All right? Sometimes when you go into certain situations, you're not as healthy, you're not as presentable as you are later on in the season. So, but there's still a transition, all right? You know that you're not healthy, you know that you're not where you need to be. So what makes you think God doesn't know that? All right? But when we make a mistake, we start judging ourselves. All right? And then when you look at 10 or 15 pounds, then you look at that and you just think that that's impossible. But then God steps in. And He just takes control of your life. And before you know it, 2 months down the road, you've lost the 10 or 15 pounds. And now you're ready to go. But if we depended on you, then you would have criticized yourself. You would have been down on yourself. And it would have taken us a lot longer. But thank the Lord that a lot of us still use God as our directions. So as we enter this new season where y'all are the praise team, all right, more responsibility on you, all right, just the fact, all right. If you want people engaged in the music service and the praise and worship, then you're going to have to get engaged, all right. But if you say, you know what, if you're like me, all right, what I used to say is, I just can't sing. I love to sing. I just don't sound good. But then I realized, you know what? God gave me this voice. You know, if I keep it shut up and silenced, not that it will bless y'all, but it certainly blesses me because I'm always happier in the shower singing. I'm always happier in my own vehicle singing and praising God. I just am. So if I can bring that much joy to myself without being arrogant, all right? When I'm in the shower, or I'm in the vehicle, or I'm in the bedroom by myself, why can't I display that joy when I'm amongst you? Because first of all, I think this church is now conditioned enough to know you better not judge me. Sister Deborah get a hold of you. All right. Miss Norma will get a hold of you. Tim will get a hold of you. Someone's going to get a hold of you. Hey, we don't do that here. All right? So now it's your responsibility as the praise team. If you see a fellow team member not praising the Lord, okay, let's support them. There's a reason why they're not. We all know each other, okay? We all love the Lord. We all have a great heart. We all got a good sense of humor. We all love to have fun at church. And none of that is bad whatsoever. And there are some of us that just like to be quiet sometimes, and that's fine too. But if a team member needs your help, if they've had a week where they've judged themselves or where other people of the world has judged them, rest assured they need you more than ever. Okay? So let's remember that. Never leave a man behind. Okay? Now, who am I? There are certain things that we are that sometimes we don't even realize we are. Now, I don't make fun. I call Miss Blue, Blue. Obviously, she has a name. All right? I call Sis, Sis. Obviously, she has a name. What you need to realize is there's little things about my personality as well as their personality that they're not offended. It kind of even brings a little pride to them. I hope they realize that I wouldn't say stuff like that unless they mean something to me. So when I call Miss Blue, Blue, I want her to realize that, you know what, I'm making a special effort to make you know that I love you. I look upon y'all and I see so many happy faces, so much joy and so much growth that sometimes I'm overwhelmed, just like I was when y'all gave me the new sign last week, when I realized that, you know what, we have grown so much. And yet we still have so much to grow. And it just amazes me how the Lord will take such a, I wouldn't say small church, such a church as us, and give us the ability to reach so many people. And it's just starting out. We've got a ministry that will be leaving in a couple of weeks, going to another part of this country to spread the same God that we have in Texas. I don't know if you know this, but I think God can handle that too. I think God can handle being here and being in West Virginia. I think God can handle being here and being in, let's just say, Mexico or Middle East. Don't put God in a box. And what makes us think that we've got God all to ourselves? We don't. There are plenty of areas that I need to improve in, changes that I need to grow. But you know what? With God, I tell you, about a year ago, whenever I became the pastor of this church, Sis and I and John was part of this conversation as well. And John's very quiet, so I don't get much feedback from him, but I don't get any discouragement from him. And that's okay. Because you'll never get any discouragement from me. You may not get a lot of words, but you'll never get a discouragement. Because you know what? If you feel God is calling you into something, that's between you and God. I'm here to help you succeed in whatever you do, in whatever ministry that you want, in whatever ministry you feel God has led you into. Now, there may be come a point where we have to sit down and we have to talk and make adjustments. I can't tell you how many times I've had to make adjustments behind this pulpit. But as you know, my personality is not one like my dad. My dad was outgoing, outspoken, didn't care what it was. As long as he had the Bible to support him, he was going to tell you how the cow ate the cabbage. Plain and simple. You didn't like it? Okay. He loved you. There's no doubt about that. But at times, it was very difficult to eat that cabbage. Okay? And it seems like at times, the only one that was eating cabbage was me. Or Sister Deborah. So whenever I became the pastor, you get on YouTube, you start seeing other pastors and how they motivate and how they speak and what they were teaching and stuff like that. And you look back at Dad and you see how he taught and how he did everything and how outspoken he was and how people were able to connect to the audience and everything. And then I just don't have that kind of personality.
God just wants you to be what you are now.
Exactly. It took me about 6 months to realize that. Unfortunately, y'all had to suffer through those 6 months. All right? And you still may suffer some. But you're absolutely right. We don't have to be anyone else. All right? Why do I need to be a whoever? I just need to be Robert Keel. I haven't found anyone that didn't love me in this place yet. Y'all get my crazy sense of humor? Even sometimes y'all laugh at me. It's actually funny. But it's who I am. I'm not an outspoken, loud preacher. You know what? I don't spit. Well, I do spit, but I don't spit in your face, and I don't preach the hell and brimstone and all that. But I will tell you one thing. God's got a purpose for each one of us. God loves each of us. He created us for a purpose. And we're all just trying to find out what that purpose is. And each Sunday as I stand behind this pulpit and I give this message, it's a message not only to you, it's for me as well. Because even though it may be directed for your life and your ministry, I'm still part of that life and part of that ministry. If nothing else, as a support. So I need to know exactly how to support you too. And so many times Christians just, we just get so tunnel vision and we just see one way in and one way out. But God opens so many doors, because let me tell you, if He can take all the sins in my life and turn them into good, and take all the sins in your life and turn them into, He's just not a tunnel vision person. He's got to come up with so many different ways and avenues to make, this sin work out for the best for me and this sin to work out the best for you. And still be able to lift your confidence up to where one day you're going to be a vessel where you're going to be leading people to the Lord. And you can't do that when you're acting like someone else. Because then you have an internal struggle. You have yourself that's wanting to just get out there, but you're holding them back because you don't think this is the right person, this isn't the right ministry, this isn't the right personality for the situation. When God put you in the situation, He created you and gave you that personality. So don't try to be a Jensen Franklin, don't try to be a Jesse Duplantis, don't try to be a Kenneth Copeland or anything else. Be yourself. Be in love with yourself, not in an arrogant way, but you've got to love yourself, because once you learn to love yourself, it's so much easier to love someone else. It really is. Every day I learn a new love that God has for me. I have a new temptation, I have a new situation, but it never fails. God is always there with His wisdom. And sometimes it's sent through you. There's times where in the afternoon whenever I'm driving in from work and the Lord tells me, you need to call Sis. So I'll call Sis and Sis will give me an update. All right? But she's always encouraging me. She's always giving me up-to-date information about you and about what's going on, about what we're buying and what are we using that stuff for and stuff like that. And it amazes me because she doesn't spend very much money. All right? And I understand, and it's the correct way to do it. But let me tell you, if someone needs gas, all right, and you got the church credit card, and they need gas, you don't have to call me and ask me. Now, if you want to buy the card, you probably need to call. But if you're going to buy the gas, you don't need to call. God wants us to bless people. People are in need. And you know what? Sometimes the pastor's not around. Sometimes the board members aren't around. You know what? It doesn't neglect, it doesn't, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't cancel out the fact that someone needs you and needs it right then and there. All right? But it struggles so much as Christians to get over ourselves and to say, you know what? I am worthy. I am up for this calling. I am definitely the person, God, you can come to make this happen. But how many times do we say to ourselves, I don't know, Lord. I'm not that good of a speaker. I'm just not that good of a cook. I'm just, that's just not part of my ministry and stuff like that. Just be thankful God is talking to you and wanting you to be a part of His ministry in whatever way. So what if it makes you uncomfortable? It happens. The next time, you won't be as uncomfortable. You'll be more willing, more able, and more experienced to help. But again, you got to start loving yourself. You just got to like yourself. All right? Whenever my wife doesn't like me, she won't cook for me, she won't rub my feet, she won't take out the garbage, she won't mow. I have to find a way to like myself. Because the closest person I have is her, and she doesn't like me right now. Sister Deborah's not around. John's not around. Tim's not around. Paul's not around. Blue's not around. I don't have any support team. I guess I could call you up. I know I could. There's no doubt about that. But you know what? I need to grow up handling it myself. I need to start liking myself. Because I don't know about you. People are always going to find a reason not to like you. All right? And I think that's the challenge. If I don't like you, man, I'm just not going to take that because I feel defeated then. I'm going to find something about you I like. Plain and simple. I'm going to find something and let God deal with me on that. Because Satan's going to deal with me on the things I don't like about you. He's going to represent that part of the argument very well. What we got to do is we got to turn the tide. We've got to make sure that LSU beats Alabama on this one. Got to turn the tide. We've got to make sure that we love ourselves so we can love others. Because you're not going to be able to love your neighbor truly until you love yourself. Plain and simple. I don't know how easy or good. So let me rush to the end real quick because I got one little statement that you've got to hear. All right. We're going to go to Mark 16th chapter, verse 7. But go tell the disciples and Peter. Now listen to this. God had already covered everything He needed whenever He told Mary, go tell the disciples. He could have stopped there. Go tell the disciples. But what did He do? He deliberately said, and Peter. Why Peter? Well, Peter had just denied Him 3 times. Peter is not liking himself. He's certainly not loving himself. All right? But Jesus in His wisdom said, you know what? I'm going to make sure that Peter knows that what I went through was for him also. Peter's going to have to find a way to forgive himself and move on because we've got stuff to do. So if you're stuck in an attitude and in a situation where you can't forgive yourself, you got to. You just have to. Because Jesus died on the cross for you. And we've got a purpose for him. And that is to move on. Now we find this story with a sad ending also because we have Judas, the one that really betrayed him. And what did he do? He could not find forgiveness. He could not find forgiveness. He could not find forgiveness for himself. And he died. So if you can't forgive yourself, will you have an ending like Judas? Or will you accept the fact that, you know what, as Peter, I made a mistake. But Jesus made sure. He called me by my name and said, hey, I did this for you. All right? Yes, you made a mistake. Yes, you betrayed me. But I accept that. And I'm moving on. I can forgive you. Now forgive yourself and let's go on and do our work. And that's exactly what happened. Or do we want to take the road of Judas? I don't think so.